But
On my camera? Oh, I got to fix it
fan
again.
favorite, CP3.
CP3. Fan favorite. Is my camera fixed now? Oh, wait. That's what's going on.
Oh, your camera's pointed at me.
Yeah,
hey, how you doing, camera?
All right. We'll just reset.
Oh, there it goes. Look at that thing move.
Look at it move. Look at the camera. All right. You asked me what's the top thing. I'll say this because a lot of people are going in on Steve Wilkes.
It feels overboard.
It is overboard, and I've criticized Steve Wilkes. I don't know why. Do you want me to just crush him over and over? No. Number one problem, and you could come in and fix a camera because I don't really care about that.
What is the number one problem?
The number one problem is Shanahan and this offense. This defense has carried the 49ers 3 of the last 4 years.
Yes.
The defense has been the top unit.
It just, as a Niner fan, it feels like the defense, for the most part, has carried the offense for 15 years. So that's what it feels like.
We have an offensive head coach. You have all this offensive personnel, top flight players, premium players at each position. But yet, this offense has scored 17 points the last 3 weeks, and we want to focus all our attention on Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes has not been perfect whatsoever. When Steve Wilkes says, I'm still learning the defense, trying to understand the defense, that's a problem. That is a problem. Something needs to work. I don't know what. Get Crocker Friday. I want to talk to Crocker, defensive back, or if we could get Richard Sherman, let's get Richard Sherman. The hell with it.
Love to talk to Richard Sherman.
What is going on with the defense? I get that. But Shanahan's offense scored 17 points the last 3 weeks.
And has looked erratic.
When can the offense carry the defense? Can the offense pick up the defense for once?
I thought early on as this season started, I felt like they were both meeting each other in the middle. Like, the defense was playing elite, the offense was playing elite. Like, maybe the O can eclipse the D. It doesn't feel like they're playing complementary right now.
Did the offense not have 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game against Cincinnati?
They couldn't even run the ball on the first possession 3 in a row. I go, oh, boy. I don't know. Didn't you think the same thing?
Yeah, I did.
You have a running back in Jordan Mason who's averaging more than 5 yards a rip, and he can't see the field.
I did. All right.
You're handing it off to Juice on the opening, like on a 3rd and 1, and you're getting stuffed?
Let's get to Steve Wyche here, Chief National Reporter, NFL Network's been doing it for a long, long time. At Wyche89, one of my favorite follows on Twitter. Just covering the league in general, man.
Yeah.
Fair, balanced, objective. We love having Steve on this show. Steve, good morning. Welcome back to the Morning Roast. Joe Shasky, the Butcher, and Bonte Hill. I guess let's start here with the big news yesterday. The Niners flipping a 3rd-round pick. That's it, a 3rd-round pick for Chase Young, the former number 2 overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. And I know Chase hasn't had the greatest career to start, but it does feel like he's on track this year with the 5 sacks. What type of player are the 49ers getting? What do you know about Chase Young here, and what a fleece for the 49ers? It feels like it's a fleece on paper, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say it's a fleece. I mean, there's still just a lot to be seen because we haven't seen a lot of Chase Young. I mean, this is the first year where we've kind of seen the potential, right? He's been injured so much. It's just not on the field. So, look, this is your typical low-risk, high-return move. And so if he comes in with Chris Kuceric, the best defensive line coach in the NFL, and he gets to develop around all these studs on the defensive line with all kind of talent around him, then what a find. But you can't sit here and say, oh, they did this, they got this great guy. You just don't know. You hope so. You really hope so. But can he come in? How long is it going to take him to learn the system? But he's an incredibly talented player. And you hope that maybe him coming to a winning culture gets him in the right headspace too, because it's tough in Washington. I mean, you see those players there; they're sick of losing. So this is a potential new start for him and the Niners, and adding to that D-line rotational depth. They might have hit a home run. We'll see. It might be a bunt single, but as long as they get something that can, you never know. But as long as they get somebody who can produce, they've got other pieces. It's not like that position or that cupboard is bare.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what does it say about that defensive line that they're adding to it? I mean, I think there were a lot of Niner fans and skeptics out there saying, like, oh, my gosh, like you've invested $51 million this year into Bosa and $25 million this year into Hargrave and obviously Armstead, and you already got Randy Gregory, and you're going back to the well on the defensive line. Is this more of an indictment of them, or is this just a unique opportunity that presented itself and they struck on it?
It's a unique opportunity. Look what have good teams done? The Detroit Lions, they draft young players in positions that they didn't need. They didn't need a running back. They didn't need a linebacker. They didn't need a tight end, but they drafted those guys, and they're studs, right? You're seeing smart personnel people understand that over the course of 17 games, guys get hurt. To add depth, even at positions of strength, I mean, and these are key positions. They're going to pass rusher. What did the Seahawks do? They went out and did the same thing. They add, and they got themselves another D lineman, right? So smart teams that are making the push have no problem taking a chance at positions where they're already set. And so that's what I think they did here. I don't think this is necessarily an indictment, but they know they need to get stronger there because, honestly, they have not been great at the edge position. And just watching that game the other day, I think they need to be a little bit more disciplined with some of the things they're doing because some guys are breaking integrity, and that gave Joey Burrow and the Bengals plenty of field to work with.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Steve Wyche here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game. Seattle adds Frank Clark and Leonard Williams to their defensive line. So we'll get to them in just a second here, but I want to go to the quarterback here. He suffered had concussion-like symptoms on the flight home from Minnesota. Brock Purdy, that is, struggled a bit against Cincinnati. What do you make of what's gone on with Brock Purdy the last 3 weeks, Steve?
Yeah, it's weird because, just to go back to that Bengals game, he throws the bad pick, and then he comes right down the field and looks great. Right, so in talking to people around the league, it's something you hear from time to time about quarterbacks. Hey, if we can disrupt that first option, right, let's disrupt Brandon Ayuk and make him pat the ball a little bit, our rush can get to him. We can unnerve him a little bit. We're going to have this guy try to do things that he doesn't normally do. And we know that Brock is great in staying on schedule. So that's kind of the defensive strategy. And the Bengals had the personnel to bother him. Right, the Vikings had the personnel with Danielle Hunter and some of those guys up front to bother him. And so, there's a book now. And so we'll see when Debo comes back if that changes because they've got more threats out there. So, look, I'm not bailing on Brock Purdy. I don't think this is a coming down to earth thing. I think this is he's got to take the next step thing because other teams with good personnel are matching up. And he's trying to do some things he hasn't done before, and he's got to kind of come back to what Kyle loves about him: stay on schedule. If it's not there, throw the ball out of bounds because the giveaways are killing him. Yeah. The giveaways are killing him, and that's even that Vikings game. One, you saw him and Jennings miscommunication, but then he tried to force one late, and so they've got to look at their schedule. They got to look at the DCs because they've had some good ones the last 2 weeks. And he's got to figure it out. But, other guys have to step up. I don't think their offensive line play has been good. And if I'm the Niners, I'm far more concerned about what's happening defensively than I am what's happening quarterback.
Why are you really worried about the defense? Because I want to get it back into Purdy, but you ended it that way. Expand on that if you can, because there's been a lot of rhetoric about Wilkes right now and schemes and the back end coverages not matching up with the pass rush. And this is a very high paid 48% of their payroll is in the top 6 players on defense, and they're just not performing.
That's why I would be more worried about the defense. The money, that's where they put their money in that front 7. Linebackers, defensive front. This is where they've done it for years, and that's where they've made their bread, right? Yep. With their pass rush, with their ability to stop the run, with doing things to cover up Fred Warner so he can run freely and make plays. And you heard me say it earlier. I'm seeing guys break integrity. I mean, there was a play where someone on the edge just came crashing in, and they bounced, on a run.
Joe Mixon. Yeah, Joe Mixon on the touchdown. That was Bosa, Steve. That was Nick Bosa.
Stay in. He just broke integrity, set the edge. It was really uncharacteristic. So I don't know if that's scheme or I don't know if the player's trying to do too much. Right? To me, that's a player trying to do too much. But maybe it was his job to spill, and the outside linebacker, the safety didn't fill. Again, I don't know the play call, but the last couple games I've watched him, I mean, the middle of the field has been wide open. You watch where teams are hitting plays; they're hitting in the middle of the field in the run, middle of the field in the intermediate passing game. And so, what's happening there? Because there's a rule, like in basketball and things like that, you don't let people come up the middle.
Did we just underrate how good DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh? I mean, I'm looking back at that 2019 staff. I mean, you got so many guys that are now really good head coaches. D'Amico seems very promising. Robert Saleh has done a really good job considering they lost Aaron Rodgers at like a play into the season, for crying out loud. And McDaniels has been brilliant. Now you got Anthony Lynn and Wilkes, and these are former head coaches. But have they lost some leadership in that coaching staff, or maybe some creativity?
Were we asking these questions when they started out 5-0?
No.
That's what I said earlier, Steve.
No,
we didn't ask not one of these questions.
I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't buy that. To say they're losing leadership or this guy can't coach or these schemes aren't matching up. Maybe you blow a call here and there. Every coach does. Every coach wants some back. But this is where, during this bye week and all, this is where you hear coaches talk about self-scout. Maybe these guys got a little too greedy during, the players, coaches, everything felt too good about what they were doing when they started out 5-0 and they got a little loose. Okay, buckle things up. It happens.
Yeah,
it happens. You hear teams and players realize it all the time. Maybe we thought we were better than what we were. All right, let's play for this new contract. Let's play for Pro Bowls. Let's do that because we're rolling to the playoffs. And you do things where you're breaking integrity. You're breaking discipline. Get back to what the scheme calls for, and then that will identify if it's a scheme issue or if it's an integrity issue.
Steve Wyche here on the Morning Roast 95.7 The Game. I'm with it. Nobody was talking about Nick Bosa missing training camp. Nobody was talking about Wilkes when they were winning 5 in a row and beating the Cowboys 42-10. And to be honest with you, Steve, look, the defense has had their issues. They have. They held Minnesota to 6 points in the second half, giving the offense a chance to win not once but twice in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati, that's a 17-10 game late. Even though they didn't play well throughout that game, they still had a chance to tie that football game up because the defense did stiffen up a bit. That's why I look at the offense here and how they can get back on track and running the football. And when I look at Philadelphia and I look at Seattle, how big is that gap between Seattle and the 49ers right now? Because that's the key to me, Steve. They're not running the football well the last 3 weeks.
That's the issue. That's the issue offensively. And even Kyle admitted, I think after the game last week, he got away from it a little bit when the game was tight. Maybe that's, maybe he thought he saw some things that weren't there. The Bengals have personnel that a lot of other teams don't. Mm-hmm. So there's no shame in losing to the Cincinnati Bengals. But I don't know if there's a significant gap between the Seahawks and the Niners. What there should be is a major realization that the Seahawks are getting better weekly, and they're adding, to some parts of their team. Getting Leonard Williams, that helps. Getting Frank Clark is going to help. They're going to be tough rushing the passer. They're going to be tough stopping the run. They're a physical team, much like the Niners, that are built to win in cold weather if they've got to go play in Philly or something or someplace like that. So I don't think there's necessarily a personnel gap. And if you give anyone the edge there, it's the Niners. It is just a progression through a 17-game season and kind of sticking to the plan, the scheme, whatever, that I think what the Niners need to tighten up right now. And we've seen this happen with them before where they have injuries. Right. And they go on 2 and 3 game losing streaks, and then all of a sudden they roll. Yeah. Right now we're post-trade deadline, so this is why I'm not panicking about the 49ers, because we've seen this before.
Steve, I want your opinion because we're so in like the Niner bubble. I think people are looking to criticize just every aspect of what's going on with this quarterback thing. And I want to get to like the head trauma situation, just league-wide. We all saw what happened with Tua last year, and we still don't even know this or that when it comes to concussions. But I was apprehensive, and I get the gladiator mentality, and I'm probably in the minority. It's a third party that is clearing these guys in a multi-step process to be ready for the game. And if the doctors say that he can play, and I'm Shanahan, I probably would play him even if I was apprehensive. But should the league look at the whole concussion thing? Because at the end of that game, and it could happen at any time, he could have took 5 weeks off and came back and gotten hit. But I'm worried about the man, the young man, Brock Purdy. He slams his head on the turf, and I just don't know what the Niners could have done to avoid that. Like, I think it's a really tough spot, and it's easy to criticize them. I'm just asking in general about the whole concussion thing, particularly with these quarterbacks in the pocket.
Well, I can tell you there's no bigger issue that gets the NFL leadership's attention than concussions. That's why they're changing helmets. They're doing all these studies. They're hiring all these universities to do all these studies and helmet designs and things like this. Look at the rule changes. You can't touch the quarterback. It's there's no true read. I have had concussions, right? And you can bounce back and be good in a week, or you can be unsteady for 3 weeks. I mean, we've seen people, where it doesn't look like a big hit, where they can't figure things out for a while. Like the human body individually bounces back. I don't think there's a direct science because, one of the big concerns that teams have about an independent neurologist is they don't know the player's behavior beforehand, right? There may be a guy who says weird stuff just because he's a quirky guy, right? And when he's being independently evaluated, he may say weird stuff, and the doc may say he's still concussed, right? And the coach could say that's who he is, and then the coach looks like he's pushing a guy out there. So there's just no. I mean, there's really no way to be 100% exact when it comes to something like this, which is why it's always a roll of the dice, no matter what.
No doubt about that. Real quick, Steve, before we let you go, 30 seconds or less because we're up against it, and we appreciate the time today. What would happen if Brock Purdy did have to miss time? Would there be any drop-off with Sam Darnold under center in this offense?
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. Haven't seen Sam play in this offense. We know they're high on him. We know he's talented, but we'll see. But the one thing the Niners tend to do is they tend to rise up at other positions to buoy their quarterback when at least doesn't turn the ball over.
Got it. Steve, man, you're so kind with your time, man. We appreciate the time. Keep up the great work at NFL Network, at Wyche89 on Twitter, of course. He's been doing it for a long time over there. Thanks for the time this morning, Steve.
Appreciate you guys.
Anytime, Steve Wyche here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 A Game.